There is a sorrow known only to those who have been wounded not by enemies, but by the very ones they once called home. It is a betrayal that does not announce itself with the clash of swords, but with silence, cold glances, and words that cut far deeper than any blade. To be harmed by strangers is expected. To be disappointed by the world is common. But to be disappointed by the world is common. But to be broken by the very family you loved the most, this is a grief that has no name, no shape, only weight. It clings to the soul like fog on a quiet field, heavy and suffocating. You carry it in your breath, in your bones, in the silence of your prayers. It starts so quietly. A word unsaid, a look too sharp, a promise forgotten. And before you realize it, the arms that once held you become the same ones that push you away. You watch love turn to comparison, to bitterness, to envy. You try to understand why the people you would have fought for, cried for, and even died for seem to treat you like a stranger. You think maybe if you become better, quieter, more helpful, more agreeable, maybe then they'll see your worth. But instead, the more you give, the more they take. The more you try, the more they misunderstand. You wonder what you did wrong when all you ever did was love them. You replay the memories over and over. The childhood moments of laughter, the dinners around the table, the holidays where you thought you belonged. Were they real, or were you simply too young, too hopeful to see the cracks? You remember how you looked up to them, trusted them, believed in their words. And yet, somewhere along the way, your presence became inconvenient, your voice became a threat, your growth became their jealousy. You did everything right, by their rules, their standards, and still, it wasn't enough. Not for them. Not for the ones who were supposed to lift you, not crush you. But what they didn't realize is that someone else was watching. God saw it all. Every tear you cried alone in your room, every insult they disguised as advice, every time they turned their backs while you held your arms out, desperate for connection. God didn't miss a moment, and even when you thought he was silent, he was recording everything. Not one wound inflicted on your heart escaped his notice. Not one humiliation was overlooked. He didn't interrupt, not because he didn't care, but because he was letting the truth reveal itself fully, for your sake, not theirs. You may wonder why he let it happen, why he let the people you trusted the most become the ones who hurt you the deepest. But pain has a way of unveiling what comfort conceals. You could not see their hearts while you were still blinded by your love for them. You would have never believed who they truly were if they hadn't shown you through their actions, and sometimes the lesson isn't in who they are, but in who you are becoming through the hurt. God is not indifferent to your suffering. He allowed it because he knew what it would awaken inside you. He knew that your strength would come not from being loved perfectly, but from surviving being loved poorly. There is a peculiar holiness in such suffering. It is not loud, not glorious. It is quiet, sacred, the kind that only God understands. You began to pray not for revenge, but for clarity. You stopped asking why they treated you this way and started asking who you are without their approval. Slowly, you realized that the love you were searching for from them could only be found in the one who created you. The people who broke you were never meant to be your foundation. That was God's role all along. And the collapse you experienced was not your destruction. It was your redirection. There are moments when you still ache, when a certain smell or sound takes you back, when you see them smile at others and wonder why they couldn't smile at you. When they act like nothing happened, and you're left holding the fragments of a relationship they shattered. But that ache isn't a weakness. It's a reminder that you loved deeply, honestly, and fully. And while they may never acknowledge the pain they caused, God will. He already has. He is the healer of wounds others refuse to admit they've inflicted. He is the comforter of the forgotten, the rejected, the loyal hearts that were bruised by familiar hands. And perhaps the most painful part is not what they did, but how effortlessly they moved on, as if your presence had no meaning, as if your sacrifices were invisible, as if your heart was disposable. You watched them laugh, celebrate, build lives as though you had never been there. No apology, no reflection, just silence. And that silence, that absence of remorse, is what hurts the most, because it tells you they never valued you the way you valued them. But even in that silence, even in their indifference, heaven was not quiet. God heard every unspoken cry, every question you were too ashamed to ask aloud. He listened when no one else did. The beauty of divine justice is that it does not come with fanfare. It comes slowly, steadily, with precision, not to destroy, but to reveal. What you lost was not family, but the illusion of what family was supposed to be. What you gained was sight, the ability to see clearly, even through your tears. The ability to understand that blood is not the only bond that matters, that sometimes the family you were born into cannot match the loyalty of the family God brings into your life later. He will give you people who see you, not just use you. People who stand with you, not on top of you. People who protect your name, not drag it through whispers and gossip. And while you rebuild, brick by brick, heartache by heartache, God becomes your cornerstone. He takes the very pain they gave you and turns it into the foundation of your healing. He shows you that your identity was never meant to be anchored in their opinion, that your worth is not defined by who walked away or who couldn't love you right. No. Your worth is set by the one who knit you together in secret, who wrote your name on his hand, who prepared a future for you before the betrayal ever occurred. What they did not rewrite his plan. It revealed it. Some nights you lie awake, remembering, not because you miss them, but because you miss who you thought they were. You miss the version of them you held in your heart, even when their actions contradicted it. You grieve a dream, a hope, a belief that love within a family should be unconditional, and it should be. But human hearts are flawed, and not everyone is capable of giving what they demand. They will ask for loyalty while gossiping behind closed doors. They will preach unity while sowing division. They will demand your silence while celebrating your downfall. And yet, through all of it, you remained kind. You stayed pure. That was not weakness. That was evidence of the light within you. God honors that light. He protects it. Even when they tried to dim it, even when they mocked it, he kept it alive. Because he knew the time would come when that very light would guide others out of their darkness. You were not broken to remain broken. You were broken to be rebuilt, stronger, wiser, unshakable. The tears you cried in secret were not wasted. They were watering the roots of the future he is preparing for you. A future where you are no longer begging for love from people too blind to see your value. A future where you are celebrated, not tolerated. Do not envy those who hurt you. Do not waste your energy wishing they would understand. Some people are so wrapped in their own wounds that they project them onto others. Some are so lost in pride that apology feels like defeat. But their silence is not your burden. Their coldness is not your curse. It is your clarity. It shows you exactly where not to return. It shows you that your healing does not require their permission, and your rising will not wait for their remorse. God's justice is not always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet lifting. He raises you slowly, gently, until one day you look around and realize you are no longer in the place they left you. You are no longer the version of yourself who accepted crumbs and called it a feast. You are no longer trying to fix what was never yours to carry. You are no longer begging to belong in places God has already called you out of. You are free, and that freedom, that unshakable peace, is the very thing they never saw coming. You began this journey hoping for reconciliation. You prayed that love would win, that time would heal, that they would come to their senses and see the pain in your eyes. But as the seasons passed and the silence grew louder, something inside you shifted. You stopped waiting. You stopped shrinking to fit their comfort. You stopped explaining your heart to people committed to misunderstanding it. And in that letting go, something holy happened. You began to heal, not because they changed, but because you did. You stopped chasing their approval and started resting in God's acceptance. That shift was not sudden. It came through nights of restlessness and mornings of resolve. You had to unlearn years of conditioning that told you family was everything, even when it was destroying you. You had to retrain your heart to find safety not in people, but in presence. The presence of a God who never once turned his face from you. The God who sat with you in silence. The God who spoke when your heart was too heavy for words. The God who didn't ask you to justify your pain, but simply held it, honored it, and promised to redeem it. And he will. Slowly but surely, he is piecing together a story that makes sense of the chaos. You may not see it now, but everything they did to break you has been repurposed. Every cruel word, every cold shoulder, every lie, they are not wasted. They are woven into a narrative where the broken become builders, where the rejected become rulers, where the wounded become wise. God is not just healing you. He is preparing you for a season where your story will be a refuge for others, where your survival will be someone else's lifeline. They may never admit what they did. They may rewrite the story to make themselves look better. They may call you sensitive, overreactive, dramatic. Let them. Let them say what they must to protect their illusions. You no longer need them to validate your reality. God already has. He saw the moments no one else did. He knows the weight you carried in silence. He knows the loyalty you showed when betrayal would have been easier. And he knows that the hurt they gave you wasn't just about pain. It was about purpose. You see, family isn't just about blood. It's about alignment. It's about souls that recognize each other, that speak truth in love, that protect without condition. And sometimes, God will allow the deepest wounds to come from those closest to show you who cannot go where he's taking you. He removes what you wouldn't, and though it hurts, it is mercy in disguise, because he loves you too much to let you build your future on a foundation that cannot hold it. You were made for more. That's why it hurts so much, because your heart was never built to survive in a cage of manipulation, envy, and emotional neglect. Your spirit was made to soar, not to shrink, and now, piece by piece, God is restoring your wings. He is teaching you to trust again, not them, but him. He is showing you that love is not supposed to hurt this way, that relationships are not supposed to drain you to feel worthy, that being family doesn't excuse abuse, that being loyal doesn't mean being blind. You are beginning to see that their rejection was actually a revelation. It revealed the limit of their love. It revealed the truth you tried to ignore. And though it's heartbreaking, it's also freeing. Because now you know, and now you can stop reaching for hands that only pushed you away. Now you can stop explaining your value to people committed to misunderstanding it. Now, you can stop trying to earn love from people who cannot give it, not because you're unworthy, but because they are unequipped. And even in the ache, even in the loneliness that sometimes creeps in when you least expect it, there is a quiet strength rising in you. You are learning to be your own peace. You are learning to hold yourself with the same compassion you once begged from them. You are learning to lean into the presence of a God who is not just watching, but walking beside you. You are not alone, not now, not ever. There is something sacred about this kind of pain. Sacred not because it is holy in itself, but because of what it births in you. This wound, though deep and raw, has become the place where God speaks the loudest. In the hollowed-out spaces where their love should have been, He places His own. In the empty rooms where laughter once echoed, He whispers peace. In the silence they left behind, He sings over you with a melody that no human voice could ever replicate. What you lost in them, you are gaining in Him. Not a substitution, but a resurrection. You see, what they meant for harm, God is using as a hinge to open a door you didn't even know existed. You didn't deserve the hurt. You didn't invite it. You didn't earn it. But God, in His strange and perfect mercy, is using it to shape something in you that ease never could. Strength, discernment, resilience, a deeper knowing of your worth that does not rise and fall with how others treat you. You have learned how to survive with nothing but truth. You have learned how to walk through fire and come out clearer, lighter, more honest. They may never understand what they did to you. They may never own the damage. They may continue to live in denial, wrapped in a narrative that keeps them blameless. That's not yours to fix. Your healing is not dependent on their apology. Your peace is not held hostage by their change. Forgiveness does not mean restoration. It means release. And you have released them. Not because they asked, but because you needed to be free. Free from the cycle, free from the weight, free from the chains of hoping they'll become someone they've shown they're not willing to be. And in that freedom, you begin to reclaim what they tried to steal. Your joy, your voice, your laughter, your light. Slowly it returns. At first, you don't recognize it. It feels strange to smile without guilt, to rest without fear, to speak without shrinking. But this is you. This is who you were before the hurt. And even more, this is who you are after it. Refined, rebuilt, reborn. The same soul, but with stronger wings. There is nothing more powerful than a heart that has been broken by family and still chooses to love. Not bitterly, but wisely. You now know the difference between loyalty and self-sacrifice. You know that love is not blind endurance of pain, but the active choice to protect what is sacred in yourself. You can love from afar. You can honor without access. You can forgive without forgetting. These are the marks of someone who has grown through the fire and has chosen to rise instead of remain in the ashes. You no longer need to justify your distance. You no longer need to explain your boundaries. The ones who truly see you will understand, and the ones who don't, let them go. Their understanding is no longer your prison. You've lived long enough in the cage of needing to be chosen. Now you choose yourself, not in pride, but in protection. Not in arrogance, but in alignment. Because you've realized that your spirit cannot thrive where it is only tolerated, and love without respect is just manipulation wearing a mask. God knew. All along He knew. He saw every moment they overlooked you. He watched as they minimized your dreams, laughed at your pain, made you feel like a stranger in your own story. And though He didn't stop it, He never left. He walked beside you in the loneliness. He wept when you wept. He was there when no one else was. And now He is preparing a table for you. You don't need to seek revenge. You don't need to explain what happened behind closed doors. The truth doesn't need defenders. It only needs time. And time, guided by God, reveals everything. One day they will look for the version of you they once dismissed. They will hear your name in rooms they never imagined. They will witness your rise in places they never allowed you to grow. And in that moment, it won't be your pride that speaks, it will be your peace. Because the real victory is not in being seen, it's in being free. Free from the ache of proving your worth. Free from the exhaustion of performing for love. Free from the cycle of being hurt and still showing up with open hands. You no longer owe your presence to those who couldn't hold your heart with care. What once shattered you now shields you. What once weakened you now awakens something divine within you. You are not bitter. You are awake. You are not vengeful. You are wise. And that wisdom will guide you where love is pure, where safety is not conditional, and where your spirit is no longer second to someone else's comfort. You'll notice the change in how you walk into rooms, no longer apologizing for your existence, no longer anticipating rejection. You'll sit in your truth like it's a throne, not a cage. You'll stop dimming your light just to protect the eyes that refuse to see you clearly. You'll stop editing your joy to make others comfortable. You'll start choosing silence not out of fear, but out of strength. And that strength, that holy resilience, is what they never expected you to carry. They counted on your silence. They mistook your kindness for weakness, but they forgot one thing. God does not abandon those who are pure in heart. And it is precisely your purity that they couldn't understand. In a world of manipulation, your honesty made them uncomfortable. In a house of comparison, your humility exposed their insecurity. In a family built on control, your freedom was seen as rebellion. They didn't hate you because you were wrong. They resented you because your spirit couldn't be controlled. You didn't follow the silent rules they built on fear. You didn't beg for love. You already knew was your birthright. And for that, they labeled you as difficult, as distant, as disloyal. But God saw it differently. He saw courage. He saw integrity. He saw a soul unwilling to trade its light for temporary belonging. And so he separated you. Not to punish, but to protect. He pulled you out of the crowd you called family so he could show you what real belonging feels like. He stripped away the false so he could give you the faithful. You thought the separation was rejection, but it was actually selection. He was setting you apart for something greater, something sacred, something they wouldn't have understood even if you tried to explain it. Now you live in that space between pain and promise. You carry the scars, but they no longer define you. They remind you not of what you lost, but of what you survived. You smile again, not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped needing it to be. You've stopped waiting for the people who hurt you to make it right. You've given that responsibility to God, and in doing so, you've taken your power back. It takes time to see it all clearly, to realize that the family you long to be embraced by was never equipped to handle the depth of your soul. They were used to patterns, to roles, to unspoken rules passed down like heirlooms. But you were different. You asked the questions no one wanted to answer. You loved without agenda. You dreamed without permission. And because they could not control you, they chose to criticize you. Because they couldn't predict your spirit, they called it rebellion. But it wasn't rebellion, it was revelation. A revelation that your identity could no longer be confined to their broken expectations. And so the distance grew. Not because you walked away with hatred, but because your growth made staying impossible. You began to see that their love came with conditions, that their approval came at the cost of your silence, that their acceptance required you to shrink into someone you no longer recognized, and you could not live like that, not anymore. Not with the truth stirring in your bones, not with the voice inside you whispering that you were made for something more. They will say you changed, that you became cold, that you turned your back, but they will never say how many times you reached out, how many wounds you forgave, how many tears you swallowed just to keep the peace. They will not speak of the nights you prayed for them, the way you defended them when they weren't in the room, the way you begged God to heal what was breaking, because admitting all that would require confronting the mirror, and not everyone is ready to see who they really are. But you saw. You saw your own reflection in the middle of the storm and decided to hold on to it. You chose not to become what hurt you. You chose not to pass down the pain. You chose healing, even when it meant walking alone. And that choice, that divine, difficult choice, is what changed everything. It didn't just set you free. It broke the cycle. It stopped the inheritance of pain. It put a stake in the ground that said, "This ends with me." And now, with time and space, you can breathe again. You can walk through the world without carrying their shadows on your back. You can speak your truth without trembling. You can love without fear of being punished for it. You've tasted freedom, and it's too sweet to trade for familiar chains. So you bless them from a distance. You forgive them, even if they never say they're sorry, and you let go. Not because you're weak, but because God has shown you that your destiny does not depend on their apology. He is writing a new story now, one where you are not cast as the black sheep or the forgotten child, one where your voice is not only heard but honored, one where your value is not measured by how much pain you can endure, but by the brilliance of your heart. And He is bringing people into your life who will love you without needing to break you first. People who see your soul and say, "I choose you," without hesitation, without games, without cost. People who don't just call you family, but prove it with every word, every gesture, every moment. That is the justice of God, not loud, not angry, but deeply, unmistakably faithful. He turns the wounds they gave you into wisdom. He turns the abandonment into anointing. And in time, He turns your story into a song that others will hear and say, "If they survived that, maybe I can too." There is a quiet revolution that takes place when you stop needing closure. When you no longer stand at the door, hoping they will return with kinder words or softer eyes. When you stop rehearsing what you would say if they finally listened, because something stronger has taken root in you, a peace that no longer requires explanation. A peace born not from their apology, but from God's assurance that you are no less loved because they couldn't love you well. You begin to understand that healing doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it means resurrection. The version of you that was crushed beneath their coldness is gone. In its place stands someone more whole, more rooted, more real. You stopped asking to be included in their shallow circles and began standing tall in the space God carved just for you. A space where truth is not punished, where authenticity is not shamed, and where love is not earned through suffering. What they mocked in you, God is magnifying. What they cast out, God is calling up. They saw your heart as a weakness. He sees it as a weapon. A heart that still chooses tenderness even after being torn. A heart that still believes in goodness even after being gutted by those who should have protected it. And that heart is dangerous, not to you, but to every voice spoken over you. It is a threat to every voice that tried to convince you that you were too much, too sensitive. No, you were never too much. They were simply too limited. They tried to measure your worth with broken rulers. They wanted you to fit inside walls that were never built to hold your greatness. They told you to stay small, stay quiet, stay predictable, because your growth unsettled their comfort. But you outgrew those confines, not out of rebellion, but out of obedience to the calling on your life, a calling that doesn't need permission from those who never saw you clearly. And as you walk forward unburdened by their opinions, God begins to unfold the next chapter. Not with drama or spectacle, but with undeniable grace. Opportunities come, joy returns, community forms, and one day, without even realizing it, you'll laugh again. Not the guarded, careful kind, but the deep, unfiltered kind that bubbles up from a healed soul. You'll love again, not from desperation, but from overflow. You'll look in the mirror and finally recognize the person staring back, not as broken, but as beloved. And what of them? Perhaps they'll remember you in passing. Perhaps they'll see your name and feel a pang of guilt they can't explain. Maybe they'll wonder how you rose without their approval. Maybe they'll realize too late what they lost when they chose pride over relationship. But you won't be waiting for it. You'll be too busy living, too full of life to dwell in what could have been. Because the past no longer owns you. It shaped you, yes, but it no longer defines you. God has the final word, and His word over you is restoration. Not a return to what was, but a redemption of everything you thought you'd lost. He will give beauty for the ashes of your sorrow. He will give you people who water what others tried to bury, and He will give you back to yourself, the truest, most radiant version. The version that no longer needs to beg for love, but radiates it from within. You'll find that as you walk in this new strength, the echoes of old pain begin to fade. Not because the past didn't matter, but because it no longer has power over your present. There will still be moments that catch you off guard. A familiar scent, a photograph, a name spoken in a casual conversation, and your chest may tighten. But you'll breathe through it. You'll remember without crumbling. You'll reflect without reopening the wound, because now your healing speaks louder than your history. And in that quiet strength, you'll discover the deepest truth of all. You were never alone. Not in the betrayal, not in the silence, not in the aching years where it felt like no one saw your tears. God was there, not distant, not detached. He was near. He watched the family you loved the most be the ones to hurt you the deepest, and still He whispered, "Hold on," not because He didn't care, but because He knew what was coming. He knew this pain would become the soil where purpose would grow. He knew this heartbreak would awaken something eternal in you. And He knew that one day, when the healing was done, you would rise, not just as a survivor, but as a testimony. Because what they meant to destroy, God used to develop you. They saw weakness in your weeping, but God saw worship. They saw inconvenience in your truth, but God saw integrity. And when they cast you aside, thinking they'd silenced you for good, God placed a fire inside you that could not be put out. You were not discarded. You were set apart. And now you carry that fire, not to burn bridges, but to light paths. Paths for others who are still sitting in the silence you once knew. Paths for those who feel unseen, unloved, unchosen. You've become the proof that pain is not the end, that family betrayal is not the final sentence in your story, that even the deepest wounds can become sacred places where God rewrites your name. And in time, you'll thank Him. Not for the pain itself, but for what it led to, for how it stripped away illusions, for how it cleared the noise and revealed His voice, for how it pushed you to a depth of faith you didn't know you had. You'll thank Him for separating you from those who could not carry your future, for allowing the rejection to reveal the redirection, for holding you in the valley and lifting you to the mountaintop in His perfect timing. Because now, you don't just know about God, you know Him. Not from books or sermons or someone else's story, but from the wilderness where He became your only source. From the nights where your pillow was soaked in prayers and your only comfort was His presence. from the silence that became sacred, from the sorrow that taught you how to stand. And that, more than anything, is your redemption. Not the applause, not the recognition, but the knowing, the deep, unshakable knowing that you are loved by the one who matters most, that you are never forgotten, that every tear had a purpose, that every scar has a story, and that story is not one of defeat, it's one of divine deliverance. So walk forward now, not with the weight of what they did, but with the wisdom of what God is doing. Let them watch from a distance as you rise in the peace they tried to steal. Let them hear your name echo in rooms they never thought you'd enter. Let them see the joy on your face and wonder how you kept going. If they ever ask how you made it through, how you're still standing, how you found peace after all that pain, just smile, because the answer is simple. God was with me.